This is Huawei's new MateBook D16, and what it does have now is a slimmer body. It's now 18 millimeters. The weight of it has been reduced for a 16-inch laptop. It's very good, 1.68 kilos only, and it does come with the Core i9-13900H, my configuration that Huawei sent out to me to review. This has 16 gigabytes of LPDDR4 RAM in it, a 1 terabyte SSD, which is PCIe 4.0. It's got Wi-Fi 6, it runs Windows 11 Home, and it's got a larger battery too. That's another one of the key changes. It's 70 watt hours now, which is quite a bit larger than the previous year, which did have a 60 watt hour battery within it. The screen, well, it's a matte screen. It's 16 inches and it's running a 1200p resolution, 16 by 10 aspect ratio. It's just over 300 nits, the brightness of it. Included with the MateBook D16, you'll find a quick start guide, our Huawei supercharged charger, so that has a Type-C connection there to it. And it's very lightweight, that charger. It's just 210 grams, and the laptop, that is 1.68 kilos only, so they've reduced the weight of it, and it's 18 millimeters the thickness, so both slimmer and lighter. Total travel weight is just 1.88 kilos, which is excellent for a 16-inch laptop. The lid does have very little flex to it, just a tiny bit. It feels very solid, and this is a grey matte paint job finish to it, metallic kind of look to it. Does look great, resists fingerprints really well. Now opening it up, can you open the lid here with just one hand? No, you can't. You are going to need to use two for that. The hinge does feel good. It's nice and stiff, it's firm there, it's not going to flop about. And the screen, the good news about it is that you can lie this completely flat. And that's great if you're going to be, say, hooking this up to an external monitor. You can lie that screen down completely flat, get it out of the way. So the touchpad, this is smaller than the MateBook Pro series. This, of course, not being their full-on premium model. This is the more affordable model, kind of makes sense there. A good keyboard, nice full size to it. And yes, I do have the German layout here. I believe it is, as you can see, because it's not a QWERTY, but they're QWERTZ with the Z here and the Y. They are swapped around. Number pad, 1.5 millimeters of travel with those keys, and typing on it, it does feel very good. It's a nice keyboard. I like the feedback from the keys, and I'll just show you the backlighting on this too. So I'll just turn my light off. And you see that it does stand out. It's in fact a little bit brighter than this. I need to adjust my camera settings, but it's good. Good brightness to it, evenly distributed. There's no darker patches or areas with this backlit keyboard. Palm rest feels good. There is no flex with the palm rest. There's no issues with the build quality that I can see at all. It's very good. Pressing down, I don't hear any creaking noises or anything like that. No keyboard bounce, flex either. Power button, this does have a fingerprint reader built into it. Along the underside, we've got a large rubber foot at the back with a bit of a gap in the middle for the airflow. Two downwards frying speakers, two rubber feet here at the front, and I can just see two fans right here for the cooling. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to open this up and show you the internals, but there is a 60 watt hour battery in this, so they've increased the capacity from the previous models, previous generation, and there is, I believe, just one single M.2 SSD slot in this. It does not have a dual slot. On the left of the MateBook D16 here, we've got a Type-C port that does support video out data. I believe it's USB 3.1 speeds from this, so 20 gigabits per second. We've got a USB 3.2 Gen 1, and that is again the 20 gigabits per second. HDMI 1.4 3.5 millimeter headphone jack with mic support. And this is a status LED right here. And on the right side, you're going to find just a USB 2.0 port. So this will be great for plugging in your mouse if you happen to be right-handed, of course. And let's take a look at that 16-inch panel. So it has an anti-glare matte coating, which is good. It means it's very usable. You don't get annoying reflections from it. And it is certified flicker-free. So they're using pulse width modulation, DC dimming, for the screen, so it does not exhibit any of that annoying flicker. Now, brightness of the screen is very good for this style. So it goes up, well, their claim is 300 nits, and it's in fact 310 exactly that I have measured with my Spider Pro. The things about the screen that I find a little disappointing is that it's 60 Hz only, the panel. Now for office work and things like that, that's going to be perfectly fine, but if you are, for example, in Chrome, scrolling at 120 Hz is nice, or 90 Hz would have been a little bit better there. And you notice when you move things around that it's just not going to be quite as smooth. I use 120 Hz all the time. I think 90 with this panel would have been great. Now the resolution is 1920 by 1200. It's 16 by 10 aspect ratio. Let's take a look at the results here of the screen color coverage. It's gamut. Huawei's claim for sRGB coverage is 100%. It is 98% here, so basically exactly the same. That is good. NTSC 70%, Adobe RGB, this is the one that I typically look at, and 75%. That's not too bad, not bad at all actually for a panel of this resolution. And finally, P3 color gamut coverage, that is 74%. So all up, for an anti-glare display in a notebook here, laptop that is, of course, in a category that's below their top end. This is more the entry level from them. It's a passable, good screen. I just wish it offered slightly higher resolution, and 90 Hz would have been a lot better than 60 Hz. The screen's bezels are matte, so they cut down on the reflections. You're going to get, in fact, no reflections from them whatsoever, and a webcam located here at the top. That's 720p. I would have preferred 1080p, but here is a sample of it in action. For this sample, I turned off my powerful studio lights and just put on normal room lighting that most people would be using. You can see the camera quality for 720p is okay. There's a little bit of grain to it. But what I do like is that Huawei includes, which they've done with their more premium line, the MateBook Pro series, is this, which is your virtual backgrounds and things. So what you can do if you want is go and change that. This is what is called Meeting Room 1. Now, when you put in the virtual backgrounds, it affects the frame rate of the camera a little bit. It comes a tiny bit more choppy, so there's a bit of a trade-off here. I quite like this one. There's office here. That looks like you're in quite a flash-looking high-rise building. There's wallpaper that you can just use. This is just the Huawei included wallpaper. You can add your own as well, or just simply blur your background if you wanted to do that. There's the beach, so it looks like, hey, look, I'm on vacation here. I'm on holiday, which is another great one too. And I like the movement in it. So that's not bad. And of course, the audio you're listening to now is the microphones. Now, those two phones are closer to you because they're just in front of the touchpad. So that's why it probably sounds a little bit better than normal. Most of the time, the microphones are either side of the webcam. Here we are on Windows now. I have swapped over to screen capture because this just makes things a little bit clearer for us to all see this. So it's that 1920 by 1200 resolution that I talked about before with the screen. And that's why we have the borders either side, because it's not 16 by 9, this is 16 by 10. So video playback, I've got a couple of files here that I want to quickly show you. So this here is HEVC, 140 megabits per second. You do see a few stutters initially at the start. Then the playback smooths right out. And this is the Iris Xe graphics that is handling that decoding there. 4K 60. Running just fine, no problems here. I don't see any drop frames or whatnot coming from that. And for some reason, I'm triggering some gestures there with the touchpad. To talk a little about that touchpad, it's fine. I'm using it at the moment. I find the accuracy to be good. It doesn't jump or skip around all over the place, which is another positive there with it. So the SSD, that's 1 terabyte. And take a look at the way Huawei's still doing this. They're partitioning it, a little odd. Because what they do is they put a 200 gigabyte Windows partition and then the rest of it as a spare data drive. Some people might like this because if you have files on that and you do a Windows reset, it's only going to be formatting and resetting the Windows partition and you still have your data left. Now you notice here that I've got a MatePad Pro connected up, and this is because I'm using Huawei Share, and this is very handy. So you'll see it, this is with the built-in software. I can go into this, the control panel, and I've got that MatePad connected up. Camera I can disable here, audio devices, and I've been using Super Device. Now Super Device, this is allowing me to seamlessly transfer files between the devices, between my PC here and that, and it's really handy software to have. I really do like it. You'll find more of that in PC Manager. So PC Manager, you can use it to update drivers. I've had a BIOS update already, but if you go into my devices, this is where I have that MatePad connected up. So I can drag and drop the files. I can also use it as a wireless display, so extend it or mirror my PC's display onto it. And there is HUAWEI Share. So I'm going to just disconnect that now because I've already moved some files over and whatnot. But it's just to show you the software is very handy, especially with the updates here. The other thing is this. So performance modes. For all of the benchmarks I'm about to show you, I ran in the performance mode. So you can either use this through PC Manager or Function and P to swap between balanced and the performance mode. So that's it for the included software that they do give us there, HUAWEI, and that's the internal storage speeds. So it is a PCIe 4.0 drive, but certainly not the fastest I have seen. And could you upgrade it? Well, if you took the back cover off, you could add, say, a 2 terabyte drive later on, but I believe there isn't a spare drive in there, unfortunately. So benchmarks, Geekbench 6 here, single core score, excellent. Not being affected by our RAM speeds, which I want to very quickly show you here. You'll see that the RAM is running at 3,733 megatransfers, or megahertz as it's listed here with Windows. So that is LPDDR4X and not LPDDR5. Faster RAM would benefit, especially the Iris Xe integrated graphics. But in general performance, it's not really making too much of a difference here with these synthetic benchmarks. Multi-core score is really good. So that's not bad at all. And Cinebench R23 does show again that we're getting very good performance here. Sure, if we had the faster RAM, the Geekbench score would be slightly better. Integrated graphics performance would get the biggest benefit there. So the speed of the Core i9 13900H is very good at that maximum turbo of 5.4 gigahertz. And I'll just show you here in the device manager just a couple of other interesting things. You see it's listed there 20 times, 20 threads, but it has 14 cores. So yeah, it's got a lot of power. And so it's great having this on board here. You see the Iris Xe graphics that I talked about before. And the other real thing of interest is this. It's using Wi-Fi 6, but not 6E. And that is the AX201 from Intel. The Wi-Fi signal strength on this, got to talk about it. It's been brilliant. Transfer speeds have been very fast. And I've just noticed that it's picking up a lot of different networks that I don't even typically see on laptops, because the antenna configuration in the MateBook D16 here is just that good. Very good wireless. Thermals with the MateBook D16 have been interesting. So they've gotten up to 99 degrees Celsius triggered thermal throttling. Now, when this happened, it was just for a brief period, then the fan ramps up. So it's a little slow to react to the fan curve. However, kind of understandable pulling 65 watts, but still getting up to 99, not good to see. But its saving grace here is that is really only for a few seconds that it was doing that. Later, those temperatures really do drop down. So pulling that 65 max, really nothing else in here to show you. The iGPU Iris Xe graphics gets up to 1.5 gigahertz. And the fan noise, do you hear it? Well, most of the time it's very quiet. It's only when you push it really hard with benchmarks or gaming, you're going to hear that fan. It's not an offensive noise. It's just a very light whooshing noise. And here is a sample of it under load running Cinebench R23. So I'm sure this question's going to pop up. Oh, you didn't show just day-to-day Windows tasks. What about Chrome, surfing, stuff like that? It's all incredibly quick, very fast. I don't have any problems with it. It does work well. Start menu all pops in. We're talking about a Core i9 here with those 20 threads. So it's pretty self-explanatory that the performance of it with the Wi-Fi 6, great signal strength and everything, it's good. So documents, spreadsheets, all that general kind of computing, it's going to be really quick and smooth with our MateBook D16 here. And what are our speakers like with our MateBook D16? Well, they're not too bad. Downwards firing speakers. So a lot of that sound, of course, is just going to be reflected back up and out. But they've got a bit of bass to them. The volume is decent. and I don't think they're bad at all for this style of laptop. They even sound a little bit similar to some of the gaming laptops I've tested out in the past. So overall, they get a thumbs up from me, the speakers. So this sample I'll give you, it's no copyright songs here that I'm using. That's why it's this particular track here. It's not my style of music or anything, but it's just so you can hear what it sounds like at 100% volume. It's pretty good. So we know it's not a gaming laptop at all, but the RSXE graphics does alright for older titles. This is GTA 5. Now, I do have it set to normal settings. This is 1080p. I could lower the settings, the visuals down a little bit to improve performance, and we're getting around 70 frames per second. So on average, it's about 60, just over 60. It is playable, but something like, say, the Ryzen 7000 series with the Radeon 780M, that does run this game a little bit better. So not a gaming laptop, but if you were, I don't know, in between meetings, a little bit bored, you wanted to game an older title on the side, like GTA 5, maybe even Counter-Strike, you can get decent enough frame rate out of it.
Watch out, man.
Lastly, what about the battery life? So 70 watt hour battery, it can go for 9 hours, even above that if you set the brightness to 30% and you're just doing kind of light tasks like office, browsing, media playback, things like that is very good. Now their claim is 15 hours with video playback, which is probably right. Maybe they put it into flight mode too for that. But when you're using it with the Wi-Fi on, it's around the 9-hour mark, which is excellent, very good. So it's an improvement over the previous models. Performance from that Core i9-13900H, excellent. Really fast single core performance, and of course it's got the 14 cores, 20 threads. That is a lot, so you can do a lot with that. However, the weakness of this model here is the RSXE graphics. Now in 2024, it certainly isn't the fastest. We've got the Meteor Lake now from Intel too, so the timing of this model coming out so late isn't exactly brilliant because now we do have the newer 14th gen or the Meteor Lake with the faster integrated graphics, which is about twice as fast as this. The RAM tops out at 16 gigabytes as well too. So for office work, browsing and things like that, it's going to be fine, but for very heavy kind of tasks, to take advantage maybe of all those cores there, you probably want 32 gigabytes of RAM, which they simply don't offer. There's no second M.2 slot with this. We only get the one Type-C port. The screen is just 60 Hertz as well, which is another minor thing there. But great keyboard, great touchpad. Webcam for 720p isn't actually too bad. Those very practical virtual backgrounds I really still like. You've got Huawei's super device, which is very handy to have there. And all up, it is a good laptop. But yes, of course, there hopefully will be a future model coming out next year, well, should I say this year, end of this year, hopefully with the new Meteor Lake chips. That would be really good to see. And perhaps they can refresh that screen with a different model with maybe a higher resolution and a slightly better refresh rate, because 60, while still very good, doesn't look anywhere near as smooth and as good as, say, 90 Hertz or 120 Hertz with the refresh rate. So there we go. That is Huawei's MateBook D16, the 2023 model.